What's up everyone, hope you guys all had a good Halloween. Honestly, this year was probably the best one I had so far. Some girl from my school had a rager at her house, and apparently someone cooked like multiple goldfish in a pot for some reason. It also ended early because, according to what some girls were saying, someone pulled a gun, and then on their way out, some dumbasses got into a car accident, so that made the police show up. Also, my costume this year was a fucking gay cowboy, so yeah, there's that. Anyways, I guess there's been a little bit of drama going down in the last couple of days in this corner of the internet. This time it having to do with ReviewtechUSA and Fortanga Plays. Basically, it all started with the release of Gotham Knights the other week. After it came out that the game was only going to be running at like 30 FPS on console, which to be 100% honest, the game doesn't even look that good. I mean, games like Cyberpunk, The Witcher 3, Red Dead 2, Resident Evil 2, 3, 4 Remix, along with 7 and 8 all look infinitely better than it. To be honest, this isn't even that much of an upgrade from Arkham Knight, which came out like 7 fucking years ago and was an entire generation apart. I mean, just take this screenshot into account from Arkham Knight. Both of these were taken when it was raining in the game. You look at Arkham and it's like, damn, that looks like really good rain. You can tell this place that the game takes place in is a shithole. And then you look at Gotham Knights and it's like, the fuck is this shit? Where is the rain? Another screenshot is comparing the water. Again, this was 7 years apart. Not to mention the fact that now on PC, that the game's been patched, Arkham on a 2060 Super on Digital Foundry runs at around 100 FPS at 1080p, which for the record, the PS5's GPU has been said to be compared to 2070 cards. So there's no doubt that if Rocksteady decided to make a patch for the console version of Arkham, it would be able to run well above 60 FPS. But anyways, one of the excuses the developers made for the game only running at 30 FPS is that there's a next-gen console that's not that much stronger than the last-gen consoles. And they had to get the game running on that console in order for the game to be allowed to release on Xbox at all. Which honestly, I get how that can be frustrating for developers. Like, that's an entire new version of the game that they have to make now. But then again,
I missed the part where that's my problem.
Every other developer has to do this shit and has had to since they started making different variations of consoles that were either more powerful or made on a budget. This is nothing new and they're not the only ones that have to do this shit. Not to mention Gotham Knights is a AAA game backed by hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, and on top of that they're charging full price for this shit with it being $70 for the PS5 and Xbox version of the game. So honestly, I don't want to hear it. Devs should be able to read the room and see that everyone agrees that 30 FPS should be a thing of the past. Not to mention the game is actual dog shit, but that has really nothing to do with this. I just felt like pointing that out because it was funny. And on top of all that, Digital Foundry came out with some of their tests they did comparing the versions on each console, and for the biggest frame drop in the game they experienced, it was only on the Series X, which is the most powerful console on the market right now. The two weaker consoles were running better than the strongest console there.
Perhaps the worst frame rates I encountered were in the train terminals. I was able to get performance to collapse here, with lows around 20 FPS. There's no clear reason for this, although I was able to tank frame rates across multiple runs through multiple terminals on the Xbox Series X. I didn't have any luck, however, in replicating this behavior on the Series S or PS5. So perhaps this one issue is Series X specific, or only emerges after a specific trigger.
If that isn't enough evidence that it's not a hardware problem, but really just an optimization problem, I don't know what is. But after that happened, more developers started coming out with their Xbox Series S takes, where they want Xbox to let them drop the Series S and just put their games on one console. Which, once again, I get that, but at the same time,
Missed the part where that's my problem.
So, ReviewtechUSA decides to make a video on this shit, and holy fuck, it's awful. So we're just gonna jump right into it and respond to this shit, because how else am I going to drag this video out to 15 to 20 minutes? Enough talking and let's see what YouTube has shout out today.
The Xbox Series S. I actually secretly love the console now, which isn't a secret because I've been very public about my love for the Xbox Series S. But in the beginning, and well, my fears were justified, I had concerns about its limited compute power. I'm like, this console has actually slightly less compute performance than the PS4 Pro.
Well, where the fuck are you getting this shit from? Literally everything I looked up comparing the Series S between the PS4 Pro has come out with it saying the Series S is better in pretty much every way. Which, I mean, yeah, there would be a massive fucking problem if it wasn't. I mean, shit, the Series S literally has a 60 FPS mode for Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p, which the PS Pro couldn't even fucking dream of doing. Like, I know he says later on in his response to all the flack that he can't put the links in the description because putting the source links in the description can risk the video getting a copyright strike, but like, fuck's sake, man. At least put a screenshot of the article you found this shit at, because it really does just sound like you're pulling this shit out of your ass.
and it's now considered a current gen or next gen console. What's going to happen down the line when games push the hardware more, when less games are cross-generation? What's going to happen with the Xbox Series S then?
I mean, I'd assume not much, because the main issue recently where people bitched about the Series S not being much stronger than the last gen was once again entirely their own fault that they poorly optimized their game. Hellblade 2 looks as good as it does, and that game's coming to Series S. Low-end PCs have been around since PC gaming was a thing, and that's never held back games from coming to PC. I don't really understand why the fuck they can't just do that with consoles, since they're just PCs with a different operating system. Point is, wait and fucking see. This was the same shit happening back when the Switch was just coming out with ReviewTech, and he was saying Nintendo's learned nothing from the Wii U's failure, and that the Switch was destined to be another failure. When look at how successful that thing is. It's outsold the fucking Wii now. Hypothetically, the Series S holds back next gen, and devs either have to limit their real vision of their game or just not put it on Xbox. Whose problem is that? Microsoft's. And either they'll learn their lesson in the next generation or just stop making consoles.
And a lot of people, even people who develop games, got very angry at me for saying that. But guess what? The armchair engineer was right. The Xbox Series S is a bottleneck and is going to hold back the 9th generation unless Microsoft changes its mind and says that games are not required to be developed for both the Series S and Series X.
What? Are you fucking brain dead? Yeah, no, if they did that, there would be a giant ass class action lawsuit, because literally the main selling feature of the Xbox Series S was that it was a next gen console for the $300 and would be able to run all these games at playable settings. Just cutting that off and letting devs do whatever the fuck they want is gonna cut off a bunch of people who bought the Series S, and Microsoft would be getting sued the fuck out of. If devs have that much of a damn problem with the Series S, they can cut off their support of Xbox consoles. It's not that hard. That's really what I see being the most likely situation if what he's saying hypothetically is right about the Series S, which it's really not, by the way, so let's just continue this shit.
So video effects artist Ian McClure, who worked on the Xbox Series X and S game I Am Fish at Bossa and also on the Surgeon Simulator series, was sitting down with Jeff and said that, yeah, the Xbox Series S is going to be a big problem for this generation.
Yeah, I have no clue how the fuck this man would have an idea of what the Series S is going to bottleneck, because you look at the type of games he's making. Yeah, not the prettiest. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they play fine, and shit, they might even be good, but the games they make aren't the most complex in gameplay or taxing on hardware. I mean, maybe on a fucking GameCube or Wii they would be, but I don't think the Series S has the hardware to that of a GameCube or Wii. So really, how the fuck would he of all people know what the Series S is gonna bottleneck? In worst case scenario, I'd say, again, either games look and play like actual shit on the Series S, or they just don't come to Xbox platforms at all. They're not gonna be limiting the potential of gameplay, which is really what I think matters here when people talk about the Series S bottlenecking this generation.
And this is what he had to say. Initially, Jeff said most of the games also come out to PC and already have to cover a wide variety of configurations. And Ian responded with, it might sound broken, but the reason you're hearing it a lot right now is because many developers have been sitting in meetings for the past year desperately trying to get the Series S launch requirements dropped.
And those developers are literally just screaming at a fucking brick wall because there is no way in hell Xbox is gonna budge on that. The Series S is making them way too much money, and we don't even know how important these developers making these games are, which based on how this video has gone on already, I'm willing to bet they're basically irrelevant and could be easily replaced.
Studios have been through one development cycle where the Series S turned out to be an albatross around the neck of production, and now that games are firmly being developed with new consoles in mind, meaning they're not going to be cross-generation anymore, teams don't want to repeat the process. Now, we talked about how 4A Games, who brought Metro Exodus to the Series S, said the GPU presents challenges for future games.
Once again, how the fuck would they know that? Metro Exodus is a next-gen game. They haven't been said to be working on any next-gen games right now, not to mention, this was like 2 fucking years ago. God only knows how much optimizing Xbox themselves have done on the Series S to figure out how to push out as much power over that thing as possible. Another thing I just wanted to bring up, all these devs don't care how poorly optimized or limited from their initial vision they make their games if there's money to be made. Take Cyberpunk 2077. That game should absolutely not be running on last gen consoles, but they put it there anyway. Not to mention how many devs have just magically figured out a way to put their games on Switch. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think if a dev decides to limit their initial vision to make more money, they should go right ahead. It's the whole reason people get into this industry, to make money, and more people getting to play a game is always good. As long as the game itself is still good, I don't give a fuck. I just find it really funny that the same devs putting their games on Switch are the same ones who say the Series S is holding back their games.
Axel Knighting of id Software said this back in 2020. I know I've quoted this a bunch of times before, but it's still very pertinent. Also, it always scaled on PC is nonsense. Every AAA game in the past decade or so has their assets made once so they run on a minimum spec. Increasing sample counts a bit here and there for high settings isn't what you could truly have done with more power. Minimum spec matters. So basically what he's saying is they have to make the core of the game work on the weakest set of hardware, and then they just put a prettier veneer on top if your PC can handle it. But the core game, the core gameplay, they have to think about the weakest hardware to make that game work.
Yeah, so do the same shit with the Series S. The only things I could see really holding back the gameplay is like having a hard drive instead of an SSD because of all the games that have to force in those squeeze through areas in order to load properly. Or maybe the CPU because the gameplay might be too complex for it. But the thing is, the Series S uses an SSD. Not as big as the Series X is, but it's the same type of SSD and runs just as fast. The CPU is only slightly weaker, so really, unless Xbox is just lying about the specs in this thing, the only thing that could possibly be held back this generation is graphics, which I genuinely don't understand how that could be possible since graphics options have always been a thing on PC. Maybe I'm just missing something here because I usually find Rich to be a really reliable source, but like all of this just sounds really fucking stupid to me.
And then if you have a more powerful PC, they'll slap on some better lighting, they'll slap on some ray tracing, some better tessellation. That's not a true next-gen game, is what Axel is trying to say, and I understand that and get it, and it is a concern.
But the CPU is not a last-gen CPU, it's not even close. The Jaguar shit in the PS4 and the Xbox One was fucking awful compared to what the Series S has. And again, correct me, make fun of me, tie me up and fuck me if you're into that shit if I'm wrong, but like, isn't that what all of the gameplay for a game is built off of? The CPU? Like, I'm genuinely asking that shit because I do not know shit about game development if I'm being 100% honest here.
So, I'm gonna make a prediction. If Microsoft caves to developers' demands because they're afraid that developers may say, okay, we're just not going to bring any games to the Series S or X if you force us to make games for the Series S because we don't want your weak hardware holding us back, Microsoft is going to change the requirement. They're going to say, all right, you don't need to make the games for the Series S anymore. And guess what at that point? It's just how it is. The Series S is dead.
Yeah, but again, there's like no fucking way they're gonna do that. They're not gonna be as stupid to risk a fucking class action lawsuit because they want some of their developers back.
Because what is making the Series S successful right now, and this is why Microsoft is not backing down and succumbing to developers' pressure yet.
Also because of the fact that they'll probably be sued into oblivion if they do that.
Even though I have a feeling they might.
Again, we don't even know who these developers are. The main names that I've heard were some irrelevant ass indie developers that could be replaced by literally anyone else. I remember hearing something about id Software coming up, but like, come the fuck on. id Software is owned by Microsoft. You think Microsoft is gonna let one of their developers skip out on one of their consoles? Hell no.
Is because that's what is making the Series S sell. It's a value proposition where for $299 you get a AAA gaming console that brings you, okay, the graphics are cut down, frame rates are cut down, resolutions cut down, but you're still getting AAA games on an affordable 9th gen console. If developers are no longer required to make the games scale for both the Series S and X, what do you think is going to happen? None of the games you're going to want, or the AAA games, are no longer going to come to the Series S, and it's going to get a bunch of like Terrarias and games made for kids, and that's it. It's dead. Its value proposition is out the window because you're not getting the same games anymore, so you're better off just spending the money and getting a digital PlayStation 5. I know that's going to piss off a lot of people that I said it, but it's the truth. get a PS5 digital for $399.
But again, I have a better chance of getting head from the hot straight boy in my Algebra 2 class tomorrow morning than that actually happening. I agree that if you were patient and were willing to wait another month or two to have a better experience for your console than the Series S, you should wait and get a PS5 digital. But the idea that there's even a chance of Xbox dropping the Series S is stupid as fuck.
I think Microsoft, they probably already are, is regretting the decision that they didn't do what Sony did and just make a cheaper diskless version of the Series X, because developers now are saying, we can't work with this thing. It's not powerful enough.
Yeah, Rich, they're considering the possibility of how much easier everything would have been if they did that and wiping their tears into their $100 bills from their sadness. They don't give a fuck if devs are mad and threatening to leave Xbox. They're buying Call of Duty now. Most people buy a console just for that. I'm sure that if this happens where devs leave Xbox because of the Series S, they'll be fine even if it is some giant publisher like EA or Take-Two. Because by the time that happens, it'll be way too late into the generation for it to really have an impact on them. I mean, shit, we're 2 years into the generation and like, what? A good 90% of games are still cross-platform. At this rate, we'll start getting next-gen only games when the next generation comes out.
So to all the people out there who even unfollowed me on social media platforms because I was saying the same thing that actual developers who know how to code are saying,
oh no, someone unfollowed you on social media. Jesus Christ, Rich. Come the fuck on, you've got like 1 million followers. It does not matter that much. And even still, the only developers you listed so far to prove your point are a random ass indie developer that I've literally never heard of before making this video, the developers who haven't even made a game since next gen came out yet and only ported a game to next gen, in a studio that's literally owned by Microsoft. You're gonna have to do a little better than that.
how do my nuts taste? Do they taste delicious? Because I was right. This is Rich of ReviewtechUSA signing out. Have a good one.
Honestly, from personal experience, balls are kind of mid. I mean, they're alright, but nothing special. Personally, I'm a cock kind of guy myself, but to each their own, I guess. But yeah. But as with anything to do with Review Tech, it doesn't end there. Following the upload of his video, Fritang and Mischief beat me to responding to it, which Review Tech watched Fritz response to him on stream. And yeah, we're just gonna take out the highlights of the stream, so let's continue this shit.
I'm not saying, look, they may have good points, but the first thing it starts off with it is that I'm like the quartering, because I put up 5 videos a day, which I think it's literally been years since I put up 5 videos, like probably like 5+ years. And where the fuck am I like the quartering?
Yeah, no, that was definitely a bit of a stretch on Fritz's end, I'm not gonna lie, but it does feel like you do put up like 5 videos a day. Rich is far better than the quartering. He doesn't bitch about how everything is fucking woke every day and shit, which honestly, I'll agree with Rich on that. Like, Fritz was really stretching that. I don't know what the fuck he was thinking.
I don't understand when I have sources for all this. I really think the anger came from, for some reason people freaked out. I said the Red Dragon had these sources from credible websites. It's as soon as they heard Red Dragon, people lost their minds. They're like, oh, he's an Xbox fanboy. I'm like,
yeah, I never brought up the whole Red Dragon thing when I was responding to his video. I mean, the dude is a massive PlayStation fanboy and he's really fucking stupid, but he is right with that. They were all sources from credible sites. My main issue is that the devs he brought up weren't really anyone credible in that video. He brought up the I Am Fish guy and he brought up a developer who hasn't made a next-gen game yet. That's it.
he's not calling you, he's just pointing how you feed into the rich, how you jump on articles. But what? It's news. Should I? And then here, you don't win either way with that. Like, there's sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm gonna wait to see how the dust settles on this, and people are like, oh God, you're late. It's news. And I cite my sources. What do you want me to do? Not talk about it and let everyone else talk about it when it's a day late and $1 short?
So this is actually one of the main downsides of being a news YouTuber and how it's always the news people we make fun of for fucking up the most. Because if they're gonna capitalize off of this shit, they have to do it as soon as possible or else it won't get into the algorithm. Which I absolutely respect that hustle, but at the same time, you didn't stop and think to maybe list a more credible developer than the dev of some niche-ass indie game that nobody's ever heard of. Or again, putting fucking screenshots of the article in your video so it doesn't seem like you're pulling this shit out of your ass. I still want to know where you got that PS4 Pro is stronger than the Series S point, especially when you said the Series S was stronger than the One X, which is stronger than the PS4 Pro 2 years ago in your Boogie video.
I haven't seen a developer I haven't seen a developer come out and say the Series S is just fantastic. I really haven't. If there is, show them to me.
What? You're kidding me, right, Rich? You're not fucking high while streaming or anything? Cause, you yourself made an entire video about a developer praising the Series S.
No, not. I'm gonna have a stream while you'll come on, dude. It'll be on Twitch. I'm not gonna have you here. I do interviews on Twitch, so follow me on Twitch.
Yeah.
This is probably my biggest problem with the stream, that Rich didn't let Vertanga into a voice call with him. He never actually provided a reason why. I have to assume it's to get more views over to his Twitch, which I guess is fair, but I don't really think it's a good enough reason. Maybe it's because he's scared of YouTube's community guidelines and that he doesn't want to get a strike from Frit doing some dumb shit, but I mean, I've had Frit on stream with me before. He's a pretty respectful dude face to face. He's never like screamed the N-word or anything like that, and I know for a fact that if he were to get someone a strike for that by coming onto their stream, his career would be fucking ruined, like just like if literally anyone else in our community were to do that to someone. Like shit, that's just as bad if not worse than issuing a false copyright strike to someone.
Is that crap though? This is Remedy. AAA game. Control. 4A games. Worked on the Metro series, Metro Exodus, GPU performance. id Software developers, what did they say? The Xbox Series X, oh, well that's not. Always as it's scaled on PC is nonsense. This is Axel Knighting, who are both programmers for id Software. Also, it always scaled on PC is nonsense. Every AAA game in the past decade or so has their assets made once so they run on minimum spec. Increasing sample counts a bit here and there for high settings is what you could truly have done with more power. Minimum spec matters. Billy Kahn. The memory situation is a big issue on the S. The much lower amount of memory and the split memory banks with drastically slower speeds will be a major issue. Aggressively lowering the render resolutions will marginally help but will not counteract the deficiencies. Keep going. There's this video.
It would push the PS3 to...
Well, yes, those sources are definitely more credible than the fucking I Am Fish developer. One, why didn't you mention those in your initial video so you didn't look like as much of a jackass? And two, none of those developers have made a next-gen game, so they don't know what really developing for the Series S is like, or its limits it has on gameplay. Yeah, graphically, maybe the games on it won't look next-gen, but I think that was a given since the console was even revealed. I mostly just care about the gameplay possibilities of games being limited. Anyways, I'm done now. This video has taken me way too long to make. It was supposed to come out on Tuesday, and now I'm not even sure if I can make tomorrow, which is Thursday. But anyways, I'm ending this shit. The rest of the stream is just Rich mostly agreeing with the shit Fritz says. I like Rich's content. I think he mostly is a really reliable source for news. It's just this one video is kind of a shitty take where there were simple mistakes that he could easily improve or fix in his next videos. I got nothing against the dude, and he probably doesn't even know I exist. But anyways, I'm done with this shit. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I hope you all have a great day.